Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd say it's good to have General Gratian before the committee. As the General well knows, we have a difference of opinion and have had for some time with respect to how we move forward with Khartoum. And I've been watching these war criminals for quite some time. At one point in time, General Gratian, you and I had an opportunity in Darfur to see some of this firsthand. And I just wanted to thank John Pendergast, who's with us today, who helped guide us into Darfur, Sudan, on that trip. And along with Don Cheadle, I chaired the delegation. We brought a Nightline camera crew who, you'll remember, John, documented the atrocities that were committed not just by the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed is the militia used by the Sudanese government. They also documented the atrocities committed by the Sudanese government itself. And this gets to the point that I want to make. And I also want to thank some of the other members who traveled with us, Barbara, on that trip, as Congresswoman Lee did. But I wanted to make several observations here. One is, thanks to the good work of Don Payne, and I chaired the committee when we put the genocide resolution through, we have a number of people, I think, that were involved in a principal way in putting this country on record in terms of where we would stand on the issue of genocide. And we have the first the eyewitness accounts ourselves as to what was happening. And I can share with you the testimony of one young boy who was missing his hand. And when asked what happened to it, he said, Janjaweed. And the pictures that he and others had sketched out of the attacks that had occurred on his village were attacks not just by Janjaweed, but also by Antonov planes operated by the Sudanese government that had dropped bombs on his city. We went into Tinea, which had been bombed by the Sudanese government. We saw sketches of the half-tracks and military vehicles and Sudanese army troops that did the follow-up work to the Janjaweed when the Janjaweed was first sent in to commit the atrocities, and then the army, the Sudanese army, came in afterwards. These are the reasons why Bashir is a war criminal, why he has been indicted by the International Criminal Court. But this is only the beginning. You know, the discussion in terms of what his militia, which is being, frankly, worked up in southern Sudan to again begin this process, these are the war crimes of a head of state who to this day won't allow many of the NGOs back into Sudan in order to assist in trying to bring some level of humanity and sustenance to the victims of this. But think for a minute what it means when the Sudanese government assists a person like Joseph Kony, who is in the process of recruiting young children into the Lord's Resistance Army. Think about the fact that you have a militia whose purpose is simply to commit rape and mayhem across Central Africa. And then you have the surrendered commander of Kony's units who says that the Lord's Resistance Army is sponsored by Khartoum. This is something that we've known for a long time. But it is good finally to have an officer in Kony's forces come forward recently and say, no, we are in fact sponsored by Khartoum, and testified to the intention of LRA leader Joseph Kony to move along the Central African Republic border of Chad and then into Darfur to meet officers of the Sudan Armed Forces, long reputed to be the LRA sponsors. Kony told me, says the officer, that he was going to meet Fadil, the SAF officer who coordinates LRA activities. He wants them to give him logistical support in a safe haven. Well, for many years, that was the safe haven. That was the line of support for munitions, and also, we know, for those wounded soldiers who were taken up and patched back into shape. This is the regime in Khartoum that we are dealing with. You know, and I'll add one other thing. Kony urged all LRA units to make their way to Darfur and report to the first Arab military post they came across. Kony is desperate, he said. Things are very hard. We were constantly on the move. Sometimes we would not rest for a week. The Ugandans were pursuing us everywhere. Well, this, my friends, is the reality of what is happening today. And the question is, what is the world going to do to bring an end to Kony's work, to bring an end to the barbarism that occurs and the suicidal action and the genocidal acts that occur across Sudan? You know, we took a certain commitment to put an end to genocide, and frankly, I think we got a rare victory the other day when Sudanese President Bashir's planned trip to Turkey was canceled. But again, at the end of the day, we've got to ask ourselves the same question that we'll hear in the testimony. The former coordinator of the UN panel of experts on Sudan will testify this morning, quote, "In contrast to that leadership of 2004 and 2005, the United States appears to have now joined the group of influential states who sit by quietly and do nothing to ensure that sanctions work to protect Darfurians." I want to hear today why that is not the case. I think that's dead on, and I think that has to change. And it's going to take more than just John Pendergast working 24/7 to make it change. It's going to take members of this committee committing themselves to getting back on offense and seeing justice done for the victims in Darfur. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.